Morning, great morning. And thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much for that empowering meditation. And thank each and every one for being here with us today. Our visitors, our members, our friends. Thank you to our team that is always so devoted to helping us to facilitate this service each and every Sunday. Thank you so much. Well, this morning, our lesson is entitled Cast Your Burden. Cast your burden. And I think we've all heard before the scripture from Psalms 55 and 22 that was read this morning. I think we've all heard that scripture before, and we probably have heard just the saying in talking in conversations, cast your burden upon the Lord, and God will sustain you. So this morning, we're going to take a deeper look at that. And I want to first just explore three terms that are stated in that scripture just to get an understanding before we get further into it. So I want us to take a look at the three terms cast and what that means, burden and what that means, and sustain and what that means. So let's take a look at the word cast. You may have heard the term casting a vision. When someone casts a vision, what they're doing is they're sharing, they have a vision that was given to them by God, and they're sharing that vision with someone else, or they're sharing that vision with a group of other people. They're casting the vision. In this particular scripture, when it uses the term cast, it's a releasing of something. A releasing of something to a higher power, to the universal mind, to the greater self. And in doing so, in releasing that, we dethrone it. In releasing it, we strip it of the power over self, the power that it has over self. It doesn't mean, be clear now, it does not mean that the situation no longer exists. It does not mean that the situation no longer exists. It means that the situation ceases to control our thoughts and control our actions and control our feelings. Casting, releasing, giving it over to the higher power so that it no longer has control of our thoughts, of our feelings, and of our actions. Let's look at the word burden. And this is a word that we don't hear very often in the unity movement or in the New Thought movement, the word burden. We tend to use the word challenge, sometimes issue, situation, circumstance, but we don't hear the word burden too often. Well, metaphysically, a burden is a negative thought or a negative condition that has taken root in the subconscious mind. It has taken root in the heart. And there's an irking and an irking and an irking and a nagging of this situation that we just seemingly can't let it go. It's really, really bothering us. It has taken root deep inside of us, and it's holding on. And we want to let it go. We want to see it right. Sometimes it's challenging. It could be something that causes agitation or feeling of that just causes us to feel weighted down, sometimes even depressed, lethargic. It could be a situation or a circumstance or an issue that's carried in the mind and in the heart, and it doesn't support us rising to the next level in consciousness. An issue, a situation, a circumstance that we're just carrying within ourselves, but it doesn't support us moving higher. It doesn't support us moving to the next level of divine living. This situation, this burden. So this burden that we're talking about this morning is a situation that's heavy. It's heavy in our heart. It's heavy in our mind, and we want to release it. We want to see it rightly. So now let's take a look at the word sustain that is also used in this particular scripture. Sustain means to to nourish, to provide, to protect, to support, or to supply. God as provider and sustainer does so out of love. We know that. Out of knowing its creation as itself, and therefore only doing what is good to and for self. Cast the burden upon the Lord, and God will sustain you. Well, we as metaphysicians are already aware that intellectual knowledge of truth alone does not bring forth a demonstration. We already know that. We already know that the knowledge of truth in the mind alone, in the conscious mind alone, does not make it happen in our life. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen in our life simply because we are aware of it in our conscious mind that we use to think each and every day. So while the intellect, the conscious mind, serves its purpose, it helps us to make choices and decisions, and we're thinking every day, we're using it every day to think, it is limited in how it perceives things, and it can at times entertain doubt and fear. And I may shift that to say it does at times entertain doubt and fear. So when we attempt to rectify issues and challenges on our own without the knowledge, with only the knowledge of the conscious mind, the intellectual mind alone, without spiritual consultation with God, with the Christ within, we can experience anxiety, worry, fear, doubt, procrastination, and more. And these things arise, they increase, and they lead to undesirable experiences. So this scripture in Psalm 55 and 22 reminds us that we have to cast, we have to cast, we have to cast, we have to give, we have to release the challenges, the issues, the concerns, the situations upon not some mysterious something somewhere, my friends. Be clear about this. When we're casting, we're releasing it to the higher self. We're releasing it to the Christ self. We're giving it to the higher power. So when we believe with all of our heart and with all of our mind, the power of God, and say, this is bigger than me, when we can say this is bigger than me and I have to release it and let it go, this is more than I can do, this is more than I'm aware, this is more than I know, this is weighing me down, this is agitating me, this is not supporting me in my life. When we know the power of God, we are able to release it, to cast it, and to let it go, and to know that God can handle this. And remember, it does not mean that the situation no longer exists. It just means that it doesn't exist in our life, and that there is a higher power, a higher dimension that is looking to and looking at and caring for this situation. When our faith is so strong that we know that the universe responds and provides, we're casting the burden. When we know, when our faith is so strong that we know that God provides and responds and provides, we are casting the vision by letting it go. And sometimes, my friends, sometimes it's a situation that is just simply, we've just done our best. We've just done our best in this situation. We've just done all that we know to do in this situation. And so we have to just release it and let it go and know that it will unfold in divine order, but it's no longer a burden on our life. You see, as Tanya pointed out in the meditation, we are not created and we are not designed to carry burdens. Hear that. We are not designed, we were not created to carry burdens. It deteriorates the mind and the body. We're designed to have active faith to release and expect good. We're designed to have active faith to release and expect the good to take place. And yes, it is necessary when we're going through these situations, when we're going through these circumstances, it is necessary to cross the bridge of active faith in order to arrive at the good. We have to cross the bridge of faith in order to arrive at the good. Fear and doubt are both misused and misdirected energy that saps our belief. It saps our belief. It distorts what we really thinking we are. And when the subconscious mind, when the heart mind is impressed with the truth that all that God is as the giver and as the supplier, fear and doubt can be dissolved. So the question becomes, my friends, who will we serve? Who will we serve? Who or what will we serve? And in casting the vision and holding the faith, it's imagination. The power of imagination comes into play because we have to hold the image. We have to hold the picture, and we want to invest our energy in seeing it right. Hear this, in seeing it right, as opposed to trying to make it right. Our role is to see it right and hold that vision and cast the burden, and not to invest our energies so much into trying to make it right. Trying to make it right over a situation that we really don't have power over. Think about that. Trying to make it right over a situation that involves someone else, and it's their situation, they have the power to see it right as well. But we cannot make it right. You see, fear and doubt is bondage. Fear and doubt is bondage. Control over someone else, thinking that we can control someone else, is really holding our own selves in bondage. Who will we serve? What will we serve? So let's take a look at this active faith that's being spoken of. Active faith. What is active faith? We know faith. What is active faith? Active faith is actively doing and preparing for that which we desire. Actively doing and preparing for that which we desire. If we desire to have a dinner with someone, maybe our children are coming for dinner, maybe a special family member is coming for dinner, or we want them to come for dinner, and maybe there's some little going on there that it's been going back and forth. They don't want to come, we want them to come, we miss them, we haven't seen them, and so we actively prepare. So we prepare the meal perhaps that we know they like, even though we're not sure they're coming, and maybe they won't even come. But we're setting the table, we're preparing, we're actively doing and preparing for that which we desire. You see, we can't desire something and then in the next conversation have negative words that just oppose what it is we'd love to experience. And as the former things begin to pass away, we begin to see, using the words of Eckhart Tolle, a new heaven and a new earth are revealed to us. But you see, newness cannot be revealed to us. Newness cannot be experienced when there's a cluttered mind. And so in casting, we release the mind of that which we do not desire, so that we can hear the inner voice, so that we can see the vision, so that the mind is clearer and calmer and more peaceful to receive that which we want to receive the answers that are needed to create that which we want to create. 1 Peter 5 and 6 and 7 remind us that, therefore, Humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that God may exalt you in due time, casting all your cares upon God, for God cares for you. That's 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7. So let's be clear, casting of the burden, casting of the situation, casting of the issue that's irking you and irking you and irking you, and no matter where you go, this situation is bothering you. No matter what you do, this situation is bothering you because the issues are in the tissues. It may not be your issue, but the thinking about it is in your tissues. So it means transferring ownership of this thing from yourself to your higher power. You're not throwing it out there to something else, somewhere off. You're giving it to your higher power to be dealt with at that level of consciousness, because that level of consciousness is where the answers reside. So you're releasing ownership of this thing so that you can live with greater ease, clearer mind, and a warmer heart. Essentially, it means giving away that thing that is bothering you. It's a decision that is made in our mind to release it and let it go. And once we release it and let it go, we leave it there. Through prayer and releasing without checking back. This reminds me of a story that we used to read in the elementary school classroom called The Carrot Seed. It's a story of a little boy who planted a carrot seed. And he planted this seed, and then the next day he went back to see if it was growing. And the next day he went back to see if he was growing. And then the next day, perhaps he was just digging at the soil, just a little bit to see if any roots had taken place. You see, we can't cast a vision and then go back and see. We have to cast it in faith, leaving it, letting it go. That's like the saying, watch pot never cooks. You watch the pot so often, you watch the pot, you look at the fire, you open the pot, you stir the pot. Watch pot doesn't cook. The carrot seed that's planted and stirred up each day does not grow. So we release it and we let it go. Be anxious for nothing, says Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds through Christ. Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Be anxious about nothing. So, how can we know if we've truly casted the burden? How can we know that? Because it's easy to say, I let that go. Meanwhile, we're tossing and turning at night. I let that go. Meanwhile, it comes up in another conversation. How can we know that we have truly released this thing, let it go, and casted it? We didn't just let it go, we casted it upon our higher self. We casted it higher in consciousness to the point where the superconscious mind can deal with it. Well, one way we can know that we've released something, we've truly released it and let it go, is by looking at the example of Jesus. You remember the story of Jesus in the boat, Jesus and the disciples in the boat out at sea, and the storm came and the disciples panicked. They panicked. Jesus was sleeping, they panicked, and they went and woke him up, and he calmed the storm. Remember, he spoke to the storm and calmed the storm. Well, when we can sleep peacefully at night in the midst of the storm, like Jesus, we know that we've successfully handed the ownership of this thing, of this burden, of this challenge over to the higher self. When we can peacefully at night sleep and the storm is still going on, that's one way of knowing that, this is not bothering me anymore. I've really released this. I've let it go. When someone walks up to you and mentions this situation to you, and you don't become agitated and worked up and riled up about it, we can say, I've casted this. I've released this. I've given it over to the superconscious mind to deal with. When we can walk through the storm, live through the storm, still have the faith, active faith, we know that we ourselves have risen to a higher level of consciousness. And remember, it doesn't mean that the situation no longer exists. It means that the situation no longer has control and power over our thoughts and our feelings and our activities all day long. And then our hearts and our minds can be at greater peace. And then we can begin to hear the inner voice and know which direction to move in. And know, my friends, that just because we've casted a situation to the Lord doesn't mean that over the next couple of days, it might pop back up in our mind. Doesn't mean that it's not going to pop back up in our mind. But at those points, we have to remind ourselves that this is no longer my issue. I've done all that I can do. This is no longer my issue. And I have given it over to my higher self. I've given it over to the God in me. I've given it over to the Christ presence in me, and refuse to take it back. Refuse to dig and to see if it has gotten good roots. Refuse to see where it is at this point. Refuse to check back on it, but keep the faith and know that all is well. Keep the faith and the trust in knowing that God can handle this. God can handle this. Release it, let it go, and resist the pressure to do something more about it until you hear from God. I'm going to say that again. Resist the pressure to do something about it until you hear from God. And be sure it's God you're hearing from and not the ego self. Because the human self may want to go and do something about it. So be sure it's God that you're hearing from through prayer. So I'm going to give you 2 affirmations that you can work with in casting the burden, and casting issues, and releasing and letting it go, giving it to your higher self and moving on with your life. That's faith. That's trust. When you can just release it and move on and keep going. Yes, that's trust. That's faith. And you don't go back to that until you hear from God. And if the word from God is let it go, you let it go. If the word from God is do ABC, it's ABC. Make sure that the word is God. So here are 2 affirmations that you can work with. One, we're working with the issue of lack or limitation or lack of anything. Lack of anything. I cast this challenge of lack upon the Christ within me and freely move forward to experience my abundance. I cast this challenge of lack upon the Christ within me and freely move forward to experience my abundance. So let us say maybe you have a disagreement with someone, a grievance with someone, an argument with someone, or you're having feelings of not such good feelings about someone. I cast this issue of grievance, or you can fill in the blank there. I cast this issue of blank upon the Christ within me and freely move forward in love. I cast this blank upon the Christ within me and freely move forward in love. We know that love dissolves any negativity. Love dripped on a situation long enough and with consistency will dissolve any situation. Love, working together, wisdom. And so the essence of casting the burden, according to Florence Shin, the essence of casting the burden, and when you think about it, this is actually so. The essence of casting the burden, casting the burden, casting the burden. That's why it's important to know that we're not throwing this off onto some power outside of ourselves. No, it's the higher power within self. We are actually working to impress the subconscious mind. We are actually working to impress the subconscious mind. We're actively working to give direction and guidance to the flow of spirit within us. Remember that spirit flows. Spirit is everywhere, within us, without us, but through our mind. Our mind is like the tunnel or the funnel, and it gives direction to which way this should flow. We've heard the testimonies in the past of Rashawn, and when Rashawn gave us a testimony of looking for a new job, we heard that. We heard how she said over and over, she let it go. She went for the interview and let it go. She cast the burden. We heard Anne Marie when she gave her testimony of her she talked about this for years and years and years and years. And then at some point you just say, you know, when the time is right, it'll happen. She let it go. And as a result, she came to meet her siblings. Those are testimonies of releasing, let it go, of casting. Because it's easy to say, my friends, it is easy to say, I let this go. It is easy to say, I am done. But are we really done? If this comes up again, do we get agitated? If someone mentions it again, do we say, I don't want to hear about that? Do we say, that again? Or do we respond from, I've released this. I've let it go. I've done all I can do. And I've turned it over to the higher power. And when I hear the voice of God, when I hear back from God, I'll know where to go from here. You see, information doesn't change your life as much as experience gained from the implementation of the information. We can know that we have to cast. We can know that we have to release. However, implementation of knowing that, implementation of the information changes lives. Implementation, hear this, trumps information. Implementation trumps information. So don't allow your thoughts to wander off into these non-productive, unproductive worries and anxieties. The outer world would have us believe and to think that our supply is in the material realm and is limited. And we hear some folks saying, I'm going to get mine. But supply is unlimited. We all can have whatever. As metaphysicians, we know that spiritually speaking, divine substance is our supply. Divine substance is our supply. It's invisible, it's infinite, and it's inexhaustible. Everywhere present. However, it's waiting for direction. It's waiting for a so-called quote unquote demand to be placed upon it onto which direction to take. In Lessons in Truth, Dr. Emily Cady writes, one of the absolute truths is that there is already provided a lavish abundance for every human need awaiting direction. There is already a lavish abundance for every human need awaiting direction. Now, we're not talking about direction, God, this is what I want, or else. Oh no, oh no, oh no. You see, at one point on your spiritual journey and on my spiritual journey, what we're talking, direction to us was, giving direction to substance was, I want this, I want that. I want to go here, I want to do this, I want to do that. As we evolved spiritually, as we continue to grow spiritually, those thoughts changed, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you agree? And it begins to sound like, I want to be all that I am called to be. It begins to sound like, I want to express my true divine nature. It starts to sound like, I want to reveal the presence of love, of patience, of creativity and peace and abundance as me, through me. What we're really saying is, I want to be more. I want to become more. I want to demonstrate more. Casting the vision. Casting the vision, giving it over to the higher self in actuality, impressing upon the subconscious mind that which is desired in health, in finances, and in relationships. Casting the vision upon the divinity within self, the Christ. And when we do that, doors open, opportunities abound, because now we have a clearer mind that we can function with. Now we have a clearer mind that we can think, that spirit can think through us, and we can hear the voice, we can hear the direction, and we can move forward. Casting the vision, we clear the mind and we gain clarity and vision. The vision that supplies the ideas that flow and then show up in the material world. And it shows up most of the time, my friend, beyond our imagination. When we catch the vision and allow spirit to handle it, and we are now open and receptive to the ideas, when we ask for the experience of more love in our life, we get an abundance of love. When we ask for increased finances, we get an abundance of that which already is. So our mind was clogged with other quote unquote stuff. You see, this casting the vision is the meaning of one of my favorite scriptures, Isaiah 43:19, where the scripture says, I'm about to do a new thing. I'm about to do a new thing. Can't you see? I'm about to do a new thing. We're proving Psalms 55 and 22, we're proving it when we take these actions. That yes, when we cast this vision upon the Lord, when we cast this vision upon our higher point in consciousness, that point in consciousness, that higher point in consciousness will sustain us. Because we cast the vision and it gives back to us what to do. We cast the vision and it gives back to us what to do. We cast the vision and it gives back to us what to do. So there are 2 teaching points that I want you to leave with today. I know I'm a little long today, but there are 2 points that I want you to grasp today. One is that casting the vision is giving this situation, this circumstance, this issue that keeps irking and irking and irking, this thing, I am giving it over to the divinity within me. I am giving it over to the Christ self. Knowing and expecting good in return. Good meaning ideas to work with and implement that produce the good in my life. Working with the one power, as Sherry Williams sang today, working with the one power. If you're working with that one power, we can do amazing things. As the meditation song was today, we can do amazing things. You see, this casting, this in a nutshell, is what Jesus did. This in a nutshell is what Jesus taught. Casting the vision. So as we evolve spiritually, this is point number 2 in the teaching point. As we evolve spiritually, so does our devotion to the Christ self, to the higher self. Wouldn't you agree? As we evolve spiritual, as we grow spiritually, our devotion to the Christ self is more profound. I want this transmutes itself to, I want to be all that I'm called to be. It transmutes itself to, I want to express my divine nature. It transmutes itself to, I want to reveal the presence of love, of patience, of creativity, of peace, of abundance. I want these qualities, I want this nature to be expressed and to show up through me every day. And when we in unity say we're whole, we're complete, and we're perfect in potential, I know you've heard me say that over and over, we're whole, we're complete, and we're perfect in potential. What is meant is our potential is to rise above the human thinking of the masses of people and allow that true innate qualities, those qualities to flow through us every day. Our potential is to rise up as Jesus did to that point of the super conscious mind where we are expressing love and creativity and all of that good stuff and patience and abundance. That is our potential, to rise up to that point and to live it and express it every single day. Sometimes in the human experience, we're a little off track. But the good news is we can get back on track. We're saying, I want to be more than I'm presently being. I want to reveal more of my God self than I'm presently revealing. When we cast the burden, that's what we're saying. I want to reveal more of my true divine nature. And when we're living from that point, when we're living from the point of the superconscious mind, when we live from that foundation, the goodness of our godness just rolls. The goodness of our godness just pours. And amazing things happen in and through the one power that is active in the universe as your life and as my life. And you know, as Matthew 8:27 says, they're talking about Jesus in this scripture, but we can related to ourselves here, when we begin to live from that point in life, other folk look at us and say, what kind of power is that? Just what they said about Jesus. What kind of power is that? What is it you doing? How'd you get like that? How does that work? Same questions they asked of Jesus, Matthew 8:27. You see, and all of this is how a way is made out of seemingly no way. A way is made out of seemingly no way. And it began by casting that thing away, giving that thing away, giving up ownership of that, whatever it is, to our higher divinity, to our Christ self. We want to see it right, my friends, and not utilize our energies trying to make it right. We want to see it right and not utilize our energies, not invest our energies so much in trying to make it right. God bless you. I bless you. And so it is.